Good evening, and dear Dhamma friends, students, and also guests. I wish you all a very good evening, and I would like to take this once again take this opportunity to say a few words about the Bodhisattva way or the Bodhisattva path, since our last, 2 weeks ago basically, I think, since our last session concerning some question and answers, I think most of the time the questions relate to the Bodhisattva path basically. So I know that all of you are well aware of the term Bodhisattva, and then any adjectives that's used with that term. But nevertheless, there might be other viewers also, or listeners also. So for those who do not maybe have a clear indication of what that means, is basically, I think in very simple words, it means big heart or great courage, great attitude. I think with the language of English, we have to use quite a number of different terms to get to one point, basically. So Bodhisattva, if we try to describe the term correctly, we might have to use quite a number of words in English. Yeah. Whereas in Tibetan, Jangchup Sempa or Jangchup Bodhisattva would be Jangchup Sempa. Yeah. Whereas it's quite simple. Yes, it's quite direct. So now, in terms of great attitude, great heart or courage, this refers to basically having great courage to face life. I think to face life, to go about life, and basically being able to transform and turn around the obstacles and the challenges of life into fortunate or friendly circumstances. Turning obstacles to friends, I think that's the term that's used. Or in Tibetan, Tengin Tronjur. So, if you have that kind of Bodhisattva attitude, and then we are definitely able to do that often and make a habit of it. So, of course, now many of the great commentaries, many of the great treatises and writings have been there, have been composed by great beings, such as, I think one that comes to mind is like the great H.H.The. So in his text of the Bodhicaya Avatara, the whole 10 chapters, it's all about basically showing the qualities of the Bodhisattva or the Bodhicitta, the courage itself, yeah, the great courage itself, and in terms of a very practical point, in terms of how to engage and how to actually generate it, how to give rise to that quality. And also others, like another great one is that of, I think, by the great Chandrakirti, that of the Madhyamika, Alankavatara. In there again, the whole 10 chapters are again about none other than the great Bodhicitta. So therefore there's, of course, just like that, there are countless of others. So looking at all those emphasizes, these points, we can clearly see the importance of this attitude, and whatever little amount that we are able to use it in our daily life, I think goes a long way, and it truly helps. So probably it is fair to say that we are trying to mimic, we are trying to imitate it. Maybe it's not a good term, a good word, but nevertheless we are trying. I think that's the truth of it, and that's also what is written in the sutras as well. That for beginners like us, we basically get in contact, make a connection with it by imitating. For example, the Arhats, for example, the Bodhisattvas and the Buddhas. So by imitating them initially, we kind of get a feel to it, and then because somehow it's like almost like a forgotten subject or a forgotten point that we have not covered for a long, long time. So that's why. I'm sorry. Did you want to jump it? Maro? Jump Mondo, young Boom Tenji, young Ujite. So, where was I? It's something quite foreign. It's something quite new initially, because it's almost like as if it's forgotten. The quality of what I'm talking about is the quality of the bodhicitta. But as we spend time, then we get an idea of it. We find some we're able to wrap our head around it, and then I think slowly, with positive circumstances, meaning having spiritual friends, spiritual teachers, and also one's own quality, effort and diligence, we are actually able to then some kind of realization that, actually I have these qualities, meaning that it's not something that I have to bring some foreign thing into my system, let's say, but somehow it's already there. We are actually trying to give rise to it. We are cultivating it. And then I think that's the moment, point where we feel, where we begin to somehow really have enthusiasm about generating this quality, and probably stop imitating, let's say, and actually feel that, okay, this is who I am, and this is what I do. So with persistence, with great courage, with patience, we can definitely get there. Yeah. Okay, we can start there.
Thank you. Hello, Your Holiness. Thank you for coming to teach to us again. We're really happy to have you here. That one sort of needs to work on to realize it, but this person's question is basically what's stopping them from realizing their true nature.
Yes. Well, Buddha nature.
Their true nature.
Mm-hmm.
Buddha nature. So what's stopping them? What is stopping me from realizing my true nature?
Yes. I think the standard answer for that is quite simple. I think we've heard it many times. As simple as, I think, ignorance, I think. That's what we say. Or timuk in Tibetan. Or pride. Or ego. And these are the terms we use to describe. Probably having a sense of maybe lack of sense of adventure. Maybe it's maybe what's holding us back in terms of realizing our true nature. Like we are so used to the mundane life, the daily routines, and we don't want to let go of that cozy atmosphere that we are so used to, and sort of lack of adventure. Maybe that's one way of putting it. I would think it's more of a fear, actually, personally. It's a fear. Fear of facing oneself. Yeah. Fear of knowing exactly who I am. Probably that's what. It's almost like saying fearing of oneself from looking at a mirror and seeing my own reflection. Of course, the trouble or the challenge comes from believing and thinking that one could say the mundane habits that we have had so far in this life. Say maybe another words to say of the past of this life, of course. The errors, the mistakes, the challenges that we have faced in one's life. Looking back at that, then somehow through those hardships and having had a bit of damage here, there, and then somehow now having to go back or look back and truly look at oneself, it's somehow holding us back because we are a little bit, not to say traumatized, but somehow affected by those past, and thinking and believing that those past are actually a part of me, which is not, of course, actually. We will have a lot of, I think, let's say, in this case, as a practitioner, I think, such as the emotions and the challenges and obstacles that we experience is a part of life. Without facing those, we will never ever well, achieve, or maybe it's not achieve is not the right word, but well, we will never basically realize who we are, our true nature in this case. So that's why we have to have, again, great courage to be able to somehow brush those away, aside, or at the same time sort of by being a bit stern and being a bit stubborn, let's say, and really sort of face yourself, you know. And then to see the errors of life, let's say, of the past, as basically manifestations of none other than karma and klesha, and then to accept that. And then it's quite professional in a way, yes. And then sort of you're almost like sort of tagging it, or sort of categorizing the items, let's say. And then once you have somehow put them in their own places, and then you have nothing but to see yourself, I think, yeah, your own potential. Of course, over the years of that kind of habitual pattern has made oneself somehow not believe in your own true nature, let's say, yes, and somehow feel that it's just a wishful thinking, a hopeful dream. So I think that's what we have to sort of overcome. Yeah. So basically, yeah, fear of the past, I think, and thinking that, in short, fear of the past meaning that the difficult past, seeing the difficult past as part of oneself. I think that's the error. Yeah. Was it clear? Yes. Somewhat.
Not very. And the next question is, dear Karmapa, what is the best practice to work with speech? How to make it become Buddha speech?
I like that question. It's quite simple and to the point. I think a simple answer would be any speech that is coming out of a kind heart, but kind heart meaning that unemotional heart, because sometimes one can mistake, I think, a kind heart in terms of if one is maybe disturbed a little bit emotionally and shaken a little bit emotionally, and then somehow develop a similar kind of expression of oneself, which one mistakes for a kind heart, I think. So basically nothing like that, nothing out of emotion, but simply out of a clear, conscious, and out of a kind heart. Then in this case, whether it's speech or whether it's activity, it's one could say it's somehow close to Buddha speech, let's say. Yeah. Yeah. Well, normally like, for example, like the very sutras that we have, actually, the very teachings of Buddha. Now, those are of course the actual words, And I think the reason why we call it the Buddha speech is because there is simply no agenda at all. Yeah. It is pure generosity. It is genuine sharing. Yeah. The best way of the ultimate form of sharing, I think. Of course, there's a saying that sharing is loving. So in this case, I think probably this proves. Maybe this is the perfect example. So having perfected not only speech but action and thought over eons and eons, basically over many lifetimes, countless of lifetimes, one has come to a point where that there is simply no need for any kind of agenda, has seen all the faults of any kind of agendas, and then having seen the positive qualities of having of generosity and kind heart, and then simply sharing knowledge. Probably that's Buddha's speech. Of course, there are other better ways to describe that. Yeah. Like now, in this case, I think most of you are, I think, familiar with the with various kinds of various aspiration prayers. Yes. One that I can think comes to my mind is that of the Samantabhadra aspiration prayer. It's perfect in every way. Yeah. It's good in every way, I could say. Because there is simply not one word actually, or not one syllable, not one vowel, or not one sentence, or anything that is not a Buddha speech, let's say. Yeah. Unless it has been interpreted wrong, or typed wrong, or written wrong. But otherwise, it's perfect in every way. So, if you have to identify what is the Buddha speech, probably that will be one. Yeah. I mean, like that, like that of the Samantabhadra aspirations, prayers, and all of the sutras and the teachings of Buddha. Yeah. It is perfect because there is no self-interest, agenda, expecting something in return. It is pure giving.